Those kids in the ad council.
America, look around. Everywhere you go, prices are still high, rates have been whipsawing markets, and the debt and spending don't exactly scream stability. Experts say diversifying with intention is the #1 secret account that all American smart money uses to hedge against instability. Monetary Gold has been around since 2000, witnessing multiple economic setbacks. If you call now, Monetary Gold will cover up to a lifetime of your IRA fees on qualified accounts. Call Monetary Gold now at 877-NOW-GOLD. That's 877-NOW-GOLD. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
You're locked into Money Matters Radio, 1120 AM WBNW. This is the Money Matters Radio Network, WBNW 1120 AM and W275CM FM. Concord, Boston, the Money Matters Radio Network.
Our Senators Edward Markey and Elizabeth Warren and Representative Jake Auchincloss are standing up for radio listeners like us by supporting legislation to keep AM radio in cars. They know the value of local radio in times of emergency. Now it's time for Congress to finish the job and pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act. Learn more at dependonam.com. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
When a heart stops, the clock starts. You are the first responder until help arrives. In that moment, 4 minutes equals brain damage. 6 minutes equals too late in an emergency. The first responder is you. We need you. Will you be ready? Learn CPR. Visit heart.org/nation. That's heart.org/nation.
I was 24 when I had a stroke.
I was 35 when I suffered a heart attack.
I was 46.
I was 62.
It's a fact. Cardiovascular disease is the leading cause of death in women.
But we can fight against our #1 killer.
Talk to your doctor about your risk factors.
Know your family history.
Learn the warning signs and symptoms.
Together,
let's go red for women.
Visit goredforwomen.org to learn more.
As a busy mom, my to-do list is full.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
Visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
When it comes to estate planning, many families focus on taxes, but understanding how your family will receive the assets you leave behind is just as important. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law and have a new guide out called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. The guide explains decisions that may be problematic, such as adding a child as a joint donor on a real estate property, which could expose your assets to creditors or a possible divorce. You'll also learn how trusts can be used to help protect your assets and control when your beneficiaries receive their inheritance. Call 866-848-5699 right now and ask for your free guide called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. That's 866-848-5699. Or request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. That's LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Hi, this is Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we've got a guide out this month titled Building Your Emergency Financial Binder. And really, Mike, we're talking about, a set of documents that someone needs in the event that something really bad happens to them. And one of the questions that family members and friends always ask is, who should I call if that happens? And this binder should have that information in it.
Yeah, it's designed to be that one-stop shopping of, hey, what do I go for? Any number of different things that could happen, right? I mean, it could be an accident that lands me in the hospital. It could, unfortunately, be my passing. But you want a consolidated place where loved ones can go to try and find, hey, what are my first points of contact that I should make?
What are those points of contact that should make their way into this binder?
Well, I think importantly, tax preparation, estate planning, and financial advice are three of the big ones that I can think of off the top of my head. The problem is who does that and how spread out it is varies dramatically person to person, right?
Sure.
If I have 5 different bank accounts for different things, that is going to be more complicated than if I have a single bank account at a single place and then an investment advisor that's overseeing all of the investments. But again, your results could vary.
Folks, the guide this month is titled Building Your Emergency Financial Binder, and it has all this information and more in it to make sure that you are leaving a comprehensive guide for what happens if you're going through an emergency. Way to get this guide? Call 800-393-4001, or you can also request it at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Paul Lane and Marc Fandetti. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. This is the Financial Exchange with Paul Lane and Marc Fandetti.
Welcome to this Tuesday edition of the Financial Exchange. For those people in the Boston area, I hope they enjoyed a great Patriots Day yesterday and were able to enjoy the marathon and potentially the day off that they may have had. We were out here grinding away, working, and we'll continue to do that today as markets bounce back in positive territory, with the Dow Jones up over 350 points at the moment, or 0.75%, and the S&P 500 is up over 0.25% as well, breaking the trend from yesterday, which we saw a slight sell-off from what had been just a frenzied pace of gains. Last week, we did see some of the enthusiasm cool on markets yesterday, but it appears as if markets are in positive territory today as we have the expiration of the ceasefire between U.S. and Iran, and so we'll be keeping you apprised of any changes on any agreements that are made between the U.S. and Iran as they continue to presumably negotiate, though the information on that is always hard to decipher. But we'll kick off the show here, deviating from the typical coverage on the agreements or potential agreements between the U.S. and Iran, and talk about a little-known company called Apple. Apple has had the same CEO for the last 15 years. You may have heard of him, Tim Cook. He took over for Steve Jobs on August 24th of 2011, and as of September 1st, he will be stepping down from his position as CEO. Apple has announced that they will have a new CEO, John Tariff, who will start on September 1st. He has been with the company for about 25 years and has a background in the hardware space of things. And so we'll take a little time to start the program to just sort of look back at what was, by all accounts, and you could poke some holes in it, but an extremely successful tenure for Tim Cook over the course of the last 15 years, particularly for those listeners out there that may have been shareholders during that period of time. They certainly greatly benefited, as all shareholders did. Apple's stock climbed nearly 2,000% since Cook took over back in 2011, compared to the S&P 500's growth of about 500% over that span of time. Apple sits today with a market cap of over about $4 trillion, which is about the size of Britain's economy. So certainly over the course of the last 15 years, Marc, Cook has done a tremendous job, it seems like, as a operations expert and expanding Apple's footprint. He didn't have, presumably, the same sort of hits that Jobs was known for in terms of product innovation, though to be fair, it is worth pointing out that he was at CEO when the iPad was released, the Apple Watch, and AirPods.
Yeah.
Those three were
You get credit for
extremely,
that if it happens on your watch,
extremely
right?
successful devices. The argument has been made in some financial presses here, doing kind of the recap of his tenure, that some of Jobs' predecessors were key members, were still there as those new products came out. To be fair, there also have been some flops as well. The Vision Pro headset was something that they spent a decade working on and spent billions of dollars developing. That really hasn't taken off at all. And also, they had spent over $10 billion trying to develop an autonomous car, and that project has been totally scrapped, and that was a decade's plus worth of work. But in general, as a steward of the company and delivering for shareholders, you can make all the fuss you want about perhaps not the same pace of innovation that Jobs brought about. But if you were a shareholder, you should be pretty damn happy that he served over this 15 years to your great benefit in terms of the growth that Apple has seen.
If they've botched their approach to AI, though, Turnus is holding the bag.
Right.
It's largely Cook's fault.
Yeah, but no one will talk about that, and that it dovetails into the point that Turnus will be under a significant amount of pressure to focus on this strategic pivot that's going to need to go on.
Think about Jack Welch. Think about Sandy Weil at Citigroup. These guys were acclaimed, lauded, worshipped. They left kind of a mess. Their predecessors were much maligned. There was not. It's like a very successful. If you like history, you read about, I don't know, the Emperor Augustus, something we all spent a lot of time thinking about. Left kind of a mess for his successors. So very successful presidents that leave thorny situations, and their predecessor ends up, inheriting an economy going into recession or whatever. I can't help but wonder if they haven't managed what I'll just call at a very high level, the AI transition. If they haven't pivoted in the right way, Turnus is going to get.
He will. I think the GE comparison is a good one because they cycled through several CEOs before they landed on.
It happens. It happens so often that it's almost like not even noteworthy. It's sort of like a regression to mean effect.
Right.
You're not going to get spectacular performance like Sandy Weil generated at Citigroup and Jack Welch. Those are just two names from the 90s that immediately pop into my head because they were so celebrated at the time. But in their wake, there were a lot of complications, and nobody could make it entirely right or do or replicate their stock market performance. And anyway.
Yeah, there's some statistic that's rallying around my head that I had heard from some fund manager out there that if you look at, broadly speaking, let's say there's 4,000 public companies out there, and the number of them that are able to grow at a compound rate of annual return of, I believe it was 20%, it was about 1%. And so I'm sure Apple, not looking at the numbers, falls into that category over this span of time for sure.
Most companies that survived have to have fallen into it.
But to replicate that performance again
you
is
can't. You can't do it because if you grow at that rate, because the stock market grows at less than that.
Right.
So if you extend that out, you're the whole stock. Like if I grow at 5 and you grow at 7, you're not just going to overtake me, but you're going to overtake me and everybody else. It's just not
all of a sudden Apple will be worth more than 6%.
And we're actually, you started the segment with the observation that like the market capitalization of Apple's stock is more than the gross domestic product of the UK. Those are odd things to compare, but people do it all the time. We all know one is a flow.
Right.
GDP is a flow. It's spending. Capitalization, market cap is a stock concept. It's static. But anyway, you could. It's like probably bigger than the stock market of 98% of companies that have a stock market.
Exactly. And so, as we turn the page and kind of look at what Turnus is facing, as you mentioned, they are a bit behind the 8 ball. It seems, at least in the early goings of the AI pivot, there has been really very little development on Apple's side of things in terms of product releases in the AI space. Their strategy now, and quite frankly, I didn't even realize that they were focusing on this. Maybe that speaks to my head being in the sand, but also maybe it speaks to the fact that Apple really hasn't made tremendous inroads on this. It's, AI-powered smart home products and wearable devices. Wearable devices, I get that piece, but the AI-powered smart home products, that was news to me that they're even in the midst of developing it. And to be clear, none of this stuff has been released, and a lot of it has been delayed quite a bit. And Mark, to your earlier point, it's, hey, these things that they have sort of in the background that they're working on, there's been There's been delays. They've run into all sorts of issues with their internal artificial intelligence capabilities not being up to snuff compared to its now biggest competitors of whether it's Anthropic or others out there. It's certainly a tough spot.
You could make a playful prediction here and say Cook's tenure was more successful maybe than people would have expected at the start, given his background. He's a boring guy. He's an operations guy, right? You could make a playful kind of mischievous prediction and say Turnus's, I don't want to say it's going to be a failure because I'm going to say failure for Kevin Warsh. I want to save that word for something really special this morning, if you'll allow me to, Paul, as the lead host here. I don't want to say failure, but people will probably set yourself up to be disappointed because it would just be so hard following in the footsteps of Jobs and then Cook because of the point you just made about nobody grows at 20% forever. There's a sort of a reversion to the mean isn't quite the right concept, but if you get what I mean by that. He's probably going to disappoint. No fault of his own.
It's a tough spot.
I hate to, pour water on the Apple parade. Well, actually, I don't. It's fun, but
no. I think what you have to acknowledge is that Tim Cook did a tremendous job. His 15-year legacy should be remembered of a great steward of the company and a really successful tenure for CEOs. To be at the helm for 15 years and have this amount of success is very rare in a public company of its size like Apple.
Is there a case to be made that looking back in 10 years, we will view his term less rosily, in a less rosy fashion? That sounds better.
Because of what's to come?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know we obviously don't know what's to come. If it continues to grow at a heated sort of clip, then I guess nobody will. But will people say, oh, he definitely should have pivoted more aggressively into generative AI and integrated it more? I'm just putting together a word salad here because I'm not a stock analyst. I don't follow it, but that seems to be sort of
I feel like that's a little nitpicky to pick on. Let's call it like the last 2 years of his tenure. So ChatGPT gets released in November of 2022, and that from that point on, it's sort of everyone is guns blazing in terms of trying to shift their strategy around. Of a 15-year tenure, you could argue maybe perhaps in the last 2 to 3 that there wasn't enough movement in that direction. Is that fair to look back and say that he did a poor job because he didn't jump quickly enough there?
So ChatGPT was 2022.
Right.
Apple Intelligence came out in 24.
Mm-hmm.
2 years later.
Right.
There's still no major developments on AI in terms of Apple.
You're definitely right. You're definitely right there.
It's been 2 years, yeah.
I'm not disagreeing that they've been behind the 8 ball and they've been slow to adapt there. But if you're looking back at a 15-year tenure as a CEO, I don't know if that's enough to mar the legacy in general of a 15-year span of time that was quite successful. Tough critics here.
By
I'm
the
not
way,
criticizing Tim Cook. I think he's a terrific. But you keep using the word steward, which to me says,
I don't think
serviceable. That's a great word. I love it. It's because it's not offensive, but it also says meh.
Well, following Jobs, that's kind of why I've used that term, because you have someone who is one of the most innovative product designers in history, and it seems like he sort of just was an executor, is how he would be described, that Cook would be. Very strong.
Yeah, I'll just add this. The last major product update news we got from Bloomberg about Apple was back in February, and it said that they are accelerating development of 3 new wearable devices. Smart glasses, we've been hearing that for years, whether it's from Google or anybody else, but smart glasses, a pendant, and AirPods with expanded AI capabilities, all built around Siri. So that's like the last major news report we have surrounding Apple's next steps for products. The smart glasses.
Yeah, we'll see on those. It's fair to levy some criticism there. So sometimes you got to know, maybe he's getting out at the right time from what it seems like. So we're going to take a quick break here on the Financial Exchange. When we come back, we're going to be covering a retail sales report that gives us a little bit of a status on the health of the U.S. consumer, as well as some chatter on Kevin Warsh, the new Fed chair, right after this break.
Market insight, retirement strategies, real talk about Wall Street and economic trends. All live every day on our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/The Financial Exchange Show. This is The Financial Exchange.
Hi, this is Susan Powers from the Armstrong Advisory Group. When it comes to Social Security and Medicare, the decisions you make today can have a lasting impact on your retirement. There are key choices to consider, like when to claim, how spousal and survivor options work, and whether your Medicare coverage is aligned with your needs. And without a clear strategy, it's easy to overlook how taxes, income, and healthcare costs all connect. So join us for a complimentary educational seminar on Thursday, April 30th at 5 p.m. at the Crowne Plaza in Woburn. We'll help you understand your options and the decisions that come with them. That's Thursday, April 30th at 5 p.m. at the Crowne Plaza in Woburn. Reserve your seat today by calling 800-393-4001. That's 800-393-4001 or register online at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. When it comes to leaving assets to your family, simplicity isn't always the best approach. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law, and their new guide is called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. Adding children as joint owners on accounts or property doesn't guarantee you can avoid probate. It may create serious unintended consequences. In this guide, you'll learn why leaving assets to your children may not always be the best plan. The guide also explains how trusts can be used to stagger distributions over time, help protect assets from creditors or divorce, and ensure your family receives your inheritance in a way that makes sense for your personal situation. Call 866-848-5699 right now and ask for your free guide, How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. That's 866-848-5699. Or request it online at legalexchangeshow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
9 out of 10 people who suffer cardiac arrest outside the hospital don't survive. Most of the time, it's because no one nearby performs CPR. Every walker who joins HeartWalk means more people trained in CPR, more research, and more life-saving moments for everyone. Take the first step and register for your local HeartWalk. Extraordinary starts with you. Find your local HeartWalk at heartwalk.org.
Let's talk LDL. AKA bad cholesterol. The higher your LDL cholesterol, the higher your risk of a heart attack or stroke. Your health matters. Know your number. Talk to your doctor and get your cholesterol checked. And learn how to help lower your LDL bad cholesterol. Because your health is in your hands. Find out more at heart.org/LDL.
Our Senators Edward Markey and Elizabeth Warren and Representative William Keating are standing up for radio listeners like us by supporting legislation to keep AM radio in cars. They know the value of local radio in times of emergency. Now it's time for Congress to finish the job and pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act. Learn more at dependonam.com. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
Text us at 617-362-1385 with your comments and questions about today's show, and let us know what you think about the stories we are covering. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Remember, you can watch the show live every day on our YouTube page. We'll have breaking business news, and all of our content is also archived. So if you want to go back and see a particular discussion, it's all there with the click of a button. Just search the Financial Exchange on YouTube and be sure to hit that subscribe button.
Retail sales data came out this morning. We saw the biggest increase in retail sales since March of 2024. A lot of that a significant portion of, I should say, is attributable to the significant surge that we saw in gas station receipts. 15.5% of the surge that we saw is, accounting for that big increase in what people are paying for at the pump. We saw the month-over-month number for retail sales in general rise about 1.7%. That was higher than analyst estimates of about 1.4% for a month-over-month growth. So while certainly the reason that we see such a large headline number is attributable to the fact that gas prices were up significantly, and this report doesn't adjust for inflation, we also did see, though, in other categories across the sphere of this retail sales report, whether it be furniture, electronics, general merchandise, all of those categories did see jumps in terms of increase in consumption and increase in spending in those areas. So certainly that was helpful to see that the consumer still remains resilient in the face of higher gas prices. If you look at core retail sales, which excludes food service, auto dealers, building materials, and gasoline stations, we still saw an increase there, stripping out some of the impacts from what we saw at gas stations. It will continue to be a big focus. Is this a 1 month blip that can be somewhat attributable to tax refunds, that the average tax refund that we're seeing for most folks is up from $350 last year to $3,500 this year? Is that sort of trickling into some of this March retail sales data? Perhaps this is just a one-off, but certainly seeing the impact from the increase in gas prices here. But also, I would say that it is nice to see that we are seeing increases in other areas there on the retail sales side of things. Switching gears to Kevin Warsh, who is right at the moment testifying in front of the Senate panel, the Senate Banking Committee, as we speak. He is going to be speaking with them today as he tries to navigate his appointment to Fed chair. And there is a lot for him to talk about and to give sort of his input on. And so for most of the segment, I know we've got my co-host here rearing up and ready to go. So I'm just
We got another hour and a half. I'm going to pace myself.
So I'm just going to...
This is going to be the gift that keeps on giving for as long as this disaster rolls on. We have at least 5 years of
I
this.
will briefly set the stage here, where Kevin Warsh has been hired, or has been appointed with certainly the pretense that he is going to come in and want to lower interest rates. He has had commentary in the past from a monetary policy standpoint that was perhaps not as dovish that he is stating today, but that is really going to be the big focus, is in the face of higher inflation, what is the Fed chair going to do? So, Mark, take it away.
Well, why don't we just start? Let's ease into it, because again, there's going to be a lot of yammering over the next hour and a half, the next couple of days, I guess. The Fed's job is to, in the short term anyway, balance inflation and unemployment. They're both influenced by forces that push one or the other in different directions. Said more simply, if the Fed creates too much demand by printing too much money, and that's a pretty good explanation of what the Fed does. That's how it influences the economy. It notices that demand might be flagging, and it gooses it by effectively printing money, crediting banks with reserves, lowering the Fed funds rate, and stimulating demand. The problem is the economy's productive capacity, the supply side, might not be able to keep up with that. So you might get inflation as a result, and then the Fed has to moderate, change course by tightening monetary policy. And this is the way business cycles.
And think of post-COVID
unfolded.
for everybody out there. That's basically what we saw, is a huge period of stimulus into pivoting away from
they had to very quickly backtrack.
Demand. Right.
They recognized that the policy had been too accommodative. So that's the challenge for the Fed in the short term. And why don't we I'll get right into very quickly something Warsh is saying that's flat out that's wrong and dangerous. He wants to cut interest rates because he is assuming that AI will have productivity enhancing effects, that nothing else in the economy changes, and therefore that justifies lower interest rates. We don't have enough time right now to talk about all the problems with that reasoning. And I'm putting reasoning in quotes here because it's not really well thought out. But the expectation is by his political masters that he will cut rates at a time when interest rates are arguably already too low in an after-inflation sense. We're in a perilous time here in terms of monetary policy and inflation, Paul.
We're running up against a break here, but when we come back, we want to talk more as to why that presumption by Kevin Warsh is perhaps a failure in Marc's words and why there are significant issues there. We're going to cover that right after this break here on the Financial Exchange.
Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @TFE Show. Breaking business news is always first, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Our Senators Edward Markey and Elizabeth Warren and Representative Lori Trahan are standing up for radio listeners like us by supporting legislation to keep AM radio in cars. They know the value of local radio in times of emergency. Now it's time for Congress to finish the job and pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act. Learn more at dependonam.com. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of women,
taking the lives of 1 in 3.
That's more than all forms of cancer combined.
For too long, heart disease and stroke have taken the lives of the women we love.
But we're not giving up.
Because we have something better.
Stronger, more powerful.
We have each other.
When we come together and go red,
the more power we have against our greatest health threat.
Visit goredforwomen.org today to learn more.
Sudden family emergencies can create confusion, especially when important information is scattered across different accounts. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. When something unexpected happens, loved ones may need quick access to legal documents or financial accounts that could affect your future. Our brand new guide is called Building Your Emergency Financial Binder. It'll help you learn how to organize the information your family may need one day. Everything from emergency contacts and identification documents to bank accounts and retirement plans. The goal is to create one clear roadmap so that people you trust can quickly find what they need if a crisis occurs. Call 800-393-4001 and request your free guide, Building Your Emergency Financial Binder. That's 800-393-4001 or request the guide online at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Let's talk LDL. AKA bad cholesterol. The higher your LDL cholesterol, the higher your risk of a heart attack or stroke. Your health matters. Know your number. Talk to your doctor and get your cholesterol checked. And learn how to help lower your LDL bad cholesterol. Because your health is in your hands. Find out more at heart.org/LDL.
When a heart stops, the clock starts. You are the first responder until help arrives. In that moment, 4 minutes equals brain damage. 6 minutes equals too late in an emergency. The first responder is you. We need you. Will you be ready? Learn CPR. Visit heart.org/nation. That's heart.org/nation.
This is Tucker Silva of the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with your Financial Exchange quick tip of the day. And today we're talking about your brand new guide, Todd, how to leave assets to your beneficiaries. Todd, how can you ensure that your kids' inheritance can be protected from future divorces?
Well, estate planning, as you know, does things like avoid probate, protect assets from nursing homes, and reduce taxes. But you know what? The family behind the estate plan can be more important. And so the trusts live on after you die, and you can have language in there that divides the assets to the children, but doesn't just pay it out, right? It holds it in trust for them and allows them to be trustee, but just not take it. In order to get it, they have an independent trustee that can say yes or no. And that way, by not owning the asset, if they get divorced down the line after you're dead, and the other side says, hey, I want half of what's in that trust, you're going to say, that's great, but you have to ask the independent trustee. So it's now not going to be available to you. And more than just the ability to say no, it's the fact that you don't own it. So if you don't own it, it's not a marital asset to begin with, so it should not be even subject to the divorce. So learning how your trust works after you die can oftentimes be more important than when you're living. And it does more for you after you die than when you're living sometimes.
The estate planning experts at Cushing & Dolan have been helping families like yours for more than 30 years, and they've written a brand new guide called How to Leave Assets to Your Beneficiaries. To get your free copy of this comprehensive guide that will help you determine the best way to leave assets to your family, simply call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699, or you can request it from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Time now for Wall Street Watch, tracking the stocks, the data, and the headlines driving markets so far today, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Busy day on Wall Street as traders continue to monitor developments out of the Middle East regarding peace talks between the U.S. and Iran. President Trump told CNBC this morning he expects the two countries to make a great deal ahead of a ceasefire that's set to expire tomorrow. Right now, the Dow is up about 0.5%. S&P 500 up about 0.25%, NASDAQ up over 1/3%, Russell 2000 up over 0.8%, 10-year Treasury yield up 2 basis points at 4.278%, and oil up about 1%, trading right around $90 a barrel. The big news on the day comes out of the tech sector after Apple announced longtime CEO Tim Cook will step down and hand the reins over to veteran engineer John Turnus on September 1st. Cook will remain Apple as executive chairman. Apple shares are down about 1%. Meanwhile, Amazon said it would invest another $5 billion in Anthropic, bringing its total investment to as high as $25 billion. Amazon stock is up nearly 2%. Elsewhere, United Health stock rallying over 9% after the health insurance company handily beat first quarter earnings and revenue expectations. United also hiked its full year earnings outlook. GE Aerospace shares down 4% despite it beating first quarter earnings and revenue forecasts. RTX posted a strong quarter for its defense business and hiked its full-year earnings and sales outlook for 2026. That stock down by 3%, and Alaska Airlines pulled its 2026 forecast due to uncertainty around fuel costs, sending shares down by 1%. I'm Tucker Silva, and that is Wall Street Watch.
As we speak, Kevin Warsh is testifying in front of the Senate Banking Committee, and in the prior segment we had discussed just sort of the issues that some of his policy contention have created. One of the tenets of some of his commentary on monetary policy has been this idea that artificial intelligence, and it's important to note that he is very intertwined into the Silicon Valley community, has deep relationships with a lot of the prominent tech entrepreneurs out there over history. So he certainly is someone that is technology focused first. And he has stated that productivity gains that will presumably come from artificial intelligence will justify the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates, and has sort of poo-pooed or distanced himself from this idea that the Federal Reserve needs to be so backward looking in terms of its approach to economic data.
That's nuts. He's assuming productivity will go up. Let's assume that's right, but what's happening elsewhere in the economy? What's required to sustain that productivity increase? Investment is required. Investment soaks up capital. That requires higher interest rates. That means a higher so-called neutral rate, that magic, unobservable, but in theory, useful number that keeps the economy growing at potential and keeps inflation constant. That's the holy grail of central banking. You want to keep rates when the economy's chugging along. You don't want to constrain it. Mm-hmm. You don't want to slow it down, but at the same time, you're keeping an eye on inflation. He's presuming that he knows what's going to happen with AI. Think about how nuts this is and forgive me, I can't think of any other word to describe it. And I can only assume that he's twisting himself because he's not a stupid guy. He may not be an economist, which a Fed chair should be, just like the head of HHS should be a doctor, head of CDC should be a doctor. Monetary policy is complicated. There are people who specialize just in that, get their PhDs in it, spend their whole lives researching it. He's not one of those guys, and it's painfully obvious right now. He's assuming he knows that AI will boost productivity, that he knows what's happening elsewhere in the economy at the same time, and that he knows what the effects of lowering interest rates will be without any data. And then on the other side of his mouth in his statement, and whatever he's saying now, presumably he's echoing it, he says, well, we're going to be data dependent when we, make decisions with respect to inflation. Yeah, but you just said you're pre-committed to a path based on what you think productivity will be over the next 5 years. It's like a weatherman giving you the forecast for the next 2 years and saying, I'll see you, this summer if I, need to tweak it. We're not going to do anything else. It's mind-bogglingly nuts.
He is in this position where it's a high wire act where you have to clearly sort of appease President Trump with this idea that there's a need to lower interest rates. That's for certain. And it seems like some of the sentiments that he's coming out with are to try and...
Yeah, he's twisting himself into a pretzel to justify his preordained conclusion, which is we need to cut rates. You can always make an edge case sort of argument for like anything. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, he's saying, no, we're going to be data dependent. We're going to keep an eye on it. How can you say you're going to be an independent central banker if you're crafting explanations based on what your political puppet masters, forgive me, but that's what they are. Trump wouldn't have appointed him if he didn't think he was going to be pliable. And by the way, that sounds like a criticism, but it isn't. Maybe you think it's great that the president wants to control the money supply. Historically, that's never worked out well anywhere it's been tried. But hey, let's give that a shot. Warsh is the guy Trump has chosen to implement his desired monetary policy, which is lower rates. At a time, by the way, when we had headline inflation increase at almost 1 full percentage point. That is a 12% annualized rate, everybody, last month. Now, that's obviously going to come down. That was gasoline and energy generally. But that's still not a time when a serious person should be thinking about lowering interest rates, unless, we happen to be heading into depression or a serious recession.
Just some live updates on his testimony as he's in front of the Senate Banking Committee as we broadcast here live. And Elizabeth Warren's on the screen. I have no doubt she's probably asking about how rich he is. That's kind of sort of her MO. But that's me taking a shot at Elizabeth Warren. Aside, some of the updates from what he said is that today's inflation is a residual of the Fed's past mistakes. And I quote, "The Fed missed the mark, and we are still dealing with the legacy of policy errors in 21 and 22. Once you let inflation," these are all quotes from him, from my producer, so if they're wrong, blame Tucker Silva.
Hi.
Once you let inflation take hold in the economy, it's more expensive and harder to bring it down. And the last one, and then Marc, I'll get your feedback on these. "The fatal policy error is still a legacy that we are dealing with today. Today, inflation is less problematic."
I'm sorry, there was so much there.
Well, let's go with the first one. "The Fed missed its mark, and we're still dealing with the legacy of policy errors in 21.
We know that.
Do you feel as if we are still dealing with the legacy of policy errors from 21 and 22?
The relationship between the supply of money and inflation is a long-term one. You can't just look at the recent money supply growth and say, inflation's going to perk up. Sometimes it works that way, but the demand for money is such. There are other things changing in the economy at the same time, which makes the relationship unreliable. So it is true that in the long run, he's got a point. What he should have said is what Milton Friedman said. And I'll paraphrase, because what Milton Friedman meant to say was inflation in the long run is always and everywhere. He said something to that effect, a monetary phenomenon, meaning the Fed, inflation is a choice. Warsh is right about that. But then in the very next breath, nearly, he says, but we got to cut rates because AI is going to be terrific.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's a Jekyll Hyde thing. One statement sounds totally sensible. Oh, good. We've got someone who recognizes the buck does stop with the Fed, and Powell recognizes that too, by the way. But it's nice to see it stated plainly. But in the very next sentence, but we need to cut rates now, despite the fact that the real Fed funds rate might be close to zero. That is where Fed funds is today, less inflation, and inflation has ticked up. I don't think anybody thinks real Fed funds is restrictive right now, unless, again, you're twisting yourself into some sort of logical pretzel to try to satisfy your political paymasters.
I feel like it's that. It's really trying to find a justification to cater to the people who appointed him is the reason why you would throw something that basically you really can't pinpoint the impacts from, which is AI and its productivity gains. Like, that is just something to throw out there to try to add to your case. But I agree with you. There's just no way that you can sit back and have any idea what the enhancements are going to be. But it's an easy thing to kind of throw and couple with this idea of
if this is the real Kevin, if he really believes what he's serving up today, we are in for a long period of ineffective monetary policy, high and unpredictable, relatively high. Maybe I'm not going to make a prediction as to what. It's hard to say. Unstable inflation.
Yeah, for me, it's, let's see what you do and not what you say. And right now, it's just saying everything.
I hear you.
You know?
But he's saying really stupid things. So is this just because he really wants the job that badly? And if so, what does that say about his character? He's doing us a disservice. You should be educating the public about monetary policy. He's failing in that regard. The big job of any Fed official is to manage inflation expectations. And he's off to a really bad start.
A text from a listener here, maybe we should get rid of the central bank, but doesn't it allow interest rates lower?
I think you got a typo there.
Yeah, okay. So
I think you meant to say, but doesn't it allow interest rates lower to lower our debt payment relief? If we're paying a lower interest rate on our debt, we're saving money that way as well. This is not 1920 and 1950 anymore.
Oh, okay. So I think the sentiment there was that the U.S. has $36 trillion in debt wherever we're at.
Yeah, okay.
And by lowering interest rates on that, in effect, you're lowering the debt service payments.
That's actually not how it works. The Fed controls short, not long-term interest rates.
Right. These are longer term.
Now, the Feds the Treasury could finance its debt using shorter maturity debt.
Particularly, it's on the longer end of the curve.
But we had this problem. The interest, he cites 1950. Maybe that was just because it sounds like a long time ago. But in 1951, the Treasury and the Fed said, you know what, this whole business of the Fed acting effectively as the financing arm of the U.S. government, captive of the U.S. Treasury, it's not working. We had very high inflation. And you had something called the Fed Accord. I'm not qualified to give a lecture on it. You can Google it. The Fed has a nice summary on their website of the Fed Accord. I think it was of 1951, which resulted exactly from the out-of-control inflation that resulted from the Treasury and the Fed acting exactly as that texter suggests. So, no, that would be really... Trump talks like this a lot. If we just had lower interest rates, the debt wouldn't even be an issue. But, Mr. President, you've got to print a lot of money to do that. And anyone who bothers to acquaint themselves, even like superficially with monetary policy history, knows that always works out disastrously wherever it's tried.
We're going to take a quick break here on the Financial Exchange, but when we come back, we'll do a little bit more on the Fed and then shift gears and talk about artificial intelligence and how it could potentially throw thousands of people in the Boston area out of work. That's right after this break here on the Financial Exchange.
Subscribe now to our YouTube page, where you'll find daily interviews and full shows of the Financial Exchange. We'll get you caught up on anything and everything you might have missed right here on the Financial Exchange. Leaving assets to your family may sound simple, but you need the right plan. Cushing & Dolan's new guide is called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. Protect your assets and control your family's inheritance. Call 866-848-5699 and request your free guide today. That's 866-848-5699 or request the guide online at legalexchangeshow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV of Massachusetts has helped me and countless others adjust to civilian life through a variety of incredible programs. Through our local Veterans Assistance Program, we provide necessary services to veterans and their communities, such as food shopping, landscaping, and companionship, but we need your support. You can help by making a donation today. Please visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
One of the most helpful things you can do for your family is to make sure that important information about your life is organized and easy to find. Hi, this is Chuck Zada from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Financial accounts, legal documents, and insurance policies are all part of a complete financial picture. When that information is scattered in different places, it can be difficult for loved ones to step in and help if a crisis occurs. Our new guide, called Building Your Emergency Financial Binder, will show you how to organize the most important details of your financial life, including key contacts, retirement plans, investment accounts, and insurance information. Call 800-393-4001 and ask for your free guide called Building Your Emergency Financial Binder. That's 800-393-4001, or you can request the guide by visiting armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Sometimes we know what's next. Other times, it's impossible to know. Life can change in an instant. Don't be caught standing by the next time someone's heart stops. Knowing CPR gives you the ability to act and takes you from bystander to lifesaver. CPR is a life-saving skill. Join the nation of lifesavers today by learning CPR at heart.org/nation. National support for CPR education provided by Elevance Health Foundation.
Our Senators Edward Markey and Elizabeth Warren and Representative Ayanna Pressley are standing up for radio listeners like us by supporting legislation to keep AM radio in cars. They know the value of local radio in times of emergency. Now it's time for Congress to finish the job and pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act. Learn more at dependonam.com. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
As a busy mom to 4 kids, my to-do list is full.
Trying to fit in exercise, eating right, and prioritizing self-care can feel next to impossible.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has easy tips, tools, and information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
So to all the moms, the aunts, grandmothers, and amazing women out there doing it all,
visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
You take care of them, Go Red for Women will take care of you.
Missed one of our shows? Catch up anytime by asking your Alexa smart speaker to play The Financial Exchange. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
The rise of AI in Boston could throw thousands of people out of work. Not sure if you listeners have heard, but there's this thing called artificial intelligence, and it's coming to take all of our jobs. Over the course of the next 5 years, according to a new startling study published by Tufts University, apparently 207,000 Boston area workers and over 260,000 statewide people are likely to lose their jobs to AI systems over the next 5 years, resulting in $25.6 billion in lost wages, a major blow to the local economy. I get it. That headline is startling, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I don't think that there won't be job disruption as a result of new technology. We have seen that historically, that does occur, that typists and other roles eventually get toll workers or whatever you want to use, they get replaced because new technology comes about that makes them obsolete. Oftentimes what's happened historically over the labor market is they've been retrained in other skills, perhaps arguments made for those who are pro AI and its development that there just will be very few areas left in the economy for people to retrain their skills and to be able to pivot to new jobs. But what this article at least does point out, a key caveat to all this really, is the pace of adoption of new technology. There's not something that you can just predict as to how governments or institutions, financial institutions, whatever types of business you're looking at, how quickly they are going to adopt this new technology. So it's hard for me to put a lot of weight into these predictions that they're running in these studies. It's good that they're running them because we are all trying to get a sense for how safe are different industries of work. But ultimately, it's just a very hard exercise to go through to project how quickly this technology is going to be adopted. I'm not saying that there won't be job disruption, but the pace of it, I think pinning down a 5-year time frame is what makes it tougher for me to get behind on these numbers.
Yeah, there will be winners and losers, geographically speaking, because of the way industries are concentrated. We're heavy in services here, healthcare, technology, things like that. And many of those jobs could be automated, and AI will do that. It's a little like when industrial robots came on the scene in the 50s and 60s. That didn't hurt Massachusetts. It hurt Ohio. It hurt Detroit. Overall, productivity went up, wages went up, but it was uneven.
Right.
So it's interesting to look at the per capita, per head income in Massachusetts and Ohio. They were the same in 1970, but technological trends, maybe a little bit of trade, other changes in the economy have resulted in Massachusetts pulling way, way ahead of Ohio. And at first, it seems to raise the question, well, what did Ohio do wrong? And the answer is probably nothing. Maybe from a policy point of view, probably nothing. It's just that jobs were concentrated there that were more adversely affected by technology and trade, which have similar effects overall on the labor force and on the economy. We were better positioned. That may not be the case for the next wave of technological revolution.
When it comes to leaving assets to your family, simplicity isn't always the best approach. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law, and their new guide is called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. Adding children as joint owners on accounts or property doesn't guarantee you can avoid probate, and it may create serious unintended consequences. In this guide, you'll learn why leaving assets to your children may not always be the best plan. The guide also explains how trust can be used to stagger distributions over time, help protect assets from creditors or divorce, and ensure your family receives your inheritance in a way that makes sense for your personal situation. Call 866-848-5699 right now and ask for your free guide, How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request it from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and/or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Amazon is going to invest an additional $5 billion in Anthropic, and potentially that could escalate up to as much as $25 billion if certain commercial landmarks are hit over the time frame. Anthropic has also agreed to purchase over $100 billion of Amazon's cloud services, including 5 gigawatts of capacity of its AI chips. And what we continue to see in this space is the intertwined relationships between these hyperscalers and these companies that are behind some of the largest and most productive large language models out there. Amazon, for its Amazon Web Services business, needs Anthropic to be a customer because they're the one who buys up 5 gigawatts of capacity. The financial exchange doesn't buy up that much capacity. Like, there are only a few companies out there that will spend that much to build out gigawatts of capacity and spend so much on Amazon's chips that it's developed, called Trainium chips. And so as a result, this investment in Anthropic of $5 billion by Amazon is kind of keeping its biggest customer not afloat, but keeping them in a stable position. That's all the time that we have for the first hour of the program here. We're going to take a quick break, but we have a ton more information to cover on the Fed and much more right after this break on the Financial Exchange. Stick with us.
When it comes to estate planning, many families focus on taxes, but understanding how your family will receive the assets you leave behind is just as important. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law and have a new guide out called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. The guide explains decisions that may be problematic, such as adding a child as a joint donor on a real estate property, which could expose your assets to creditors or a possible divorce. You'll also learn how trusts can be used to help protect your assets and control when your beneficiaries receive their inheritance. Call 866-848-5699 right now and ask for your free guide called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. That's 866-848-5699. Or request the guide online by visiting legalexchangeshow.com. That's LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
One of the most helpful things you can do for your family is to make sure that important information about your life is organized and easy to find. Hi, this is Chuck Zada from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Financial accounts, legal documents, and insurance policies are all part of a complete financial picture. When that information is scattered in different places, it can be difficult for loved ones to step in and help if a crisis occurs. Our new guide called Building Your Emergency Financial Binder will show you how to organize the most important details of your financial life, including key contacts, retirement plans, investment accounts, and insurance information. Call 800-393-4001 and ask for your free guide called Building Your Emergency Financial Binder. That's 800-393-4001, or you can request the guide by visiting ArmstrongAdvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
9 out of 10 people who suffer cardiac arrest outside the hospital don't survive. Most of the time, it's because no one nearby performs CPR. Every walker who joins HeartWalk means more people trained in CPR, more research, and more life-saving moments for everyone. Take the first step and register for your local HeartWalk. Extraordinary starts with you. Find your local HeartWalk at heartwalk.org.
Our Senators Edward Markey and Elizabeth Warren and Representative William Keating are standing up for radio listeners like us by supporting legislation to keep AM radio in cars. They know the value of local radio in times of emergency. Now it's time for Congress to finish the job and pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act. Learn more at dependonam.com. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
This is the Money Matters Radio Network. WBNW 1120 AM and W275CM FM. Concord, Boston. The Money Matters Radio Network.
When a heart stops, the clock starts. You are the first responder until help arrives. In that moment, 4 minutes equals brain damage. 6 minutes equals too late in an emergency. The first responder is you. We need you. Will you be ready? Learn CPR. Visit heart.org/nation. That's heart.org/nation.
Sometimes we know what's next. Other times, it's impossible to know. Life can change in an instant. Don't be caught standing by the next time someone's heart stops. Knowing CPR gives you the ability to act and takes you from bystander to lifesaver. CPR is a life-saving skill. Join the nation of lifesavers today by learning CPR at heart.org/nation. National support for CPR education provided by Elevance Health Foundation.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
Organization can make a big difference when life takes an unexpected turn. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Having your most important information all in one place may help the people you trust handle critical financial or legal decisions if a crisis occurs. We've written a new guide called Building Your Emergency Financial Binder. In it, we offer strategies that can help you coordinate the most vital details of your life, including key contacts, legal documents, and property information. Our goal is to provide you with a clear plan for the people you trust if they ever need to help manage a life-altering situation. Call 800-393-4001 right now and ask for your free guide called Building Your Emergency Financial Binder. That's 800-393-4001, or you can request it online at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
This is Tucker Silva of the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with your Financial Exchange quick tip of the day. And today we're talking about your brand new guide, Todd, how to leave assets to your beneficiaries. Todd, why can't you just add your kids to your accounts or to your house deed?
Well, you can. It's just not a good idea. So people who do that understand with an account, right, you can put a joint name on the account. Now, that doesn't actually complete the gift because you actually have to take the money out and then the gift is complete. But when you set it up, yeah, the asset would avoid probate. But if something happens to the child, it's going to be, available. Half the asset would be subject to the children's creditor. So you don't want that. And secondly, if you only put one kid on the deed, you've likely disinherited the other kids. So it's not really good planning overall. Whereas if you put the house in the kid's name, now you've actually made a completed gift of half the house and would need to file a gift tax return, number one. Number two, of course, it's exposed to the child's creditors and, yes, divorces. You could find yourself at some point owning half your house with an ex-in-law. Not sure that's a good way to plan. So please, put together trusts. Don't just throw names on deeds or on bank accounts because, as I always like to say, nothing good comes from giving assets away while you're living.
The estate planning experts at Cushing & Dolan have been helping families like yours for more than 30 years, and they've written a brand new guide called How to Leave Assets to Your Beneficiaries. To get your free copy of this comprehensive guide that will help you determine the best way to leave assets to your family, simply call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699, or you can request it from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Paul Lane and Marc Fandetti. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. This is the Financial Exchange with Paul Lane and Marc Fandetti.
A busy day here on the Financial Exchange as Federal Reserve Chair nominee Kevin Warsh is appearing as we speak in front of the Senate Banking Committee for his confirmation hearing. We also had the big news that came out from Apple, in which it will have a new CEO at the helm effective on September 1st, the first new CEO for the last 15 years. Tim Cook has held down that job, taking over for Steve Jobs in 2011. He will cede that position on September 1st. However, he will still remain as executive chair on the board. And so briefly here, we'll just talk about Cook's tenure, which was an incredibly successful one from a stock market from a market cap perspective, in which Apple's stock climbed nearly 2,000% since he took over, compared to the S&P 500 of about 500% over the same time. John Ternus will be the new CEO of Apple, and he will be in charge of sort of focusing on this strategic pivot that Apple has to go through, in which it really has little presence at all within artificial intelligence, and any sort of adoption or new products that incorporate that within their hardware. That is really what John Ternus will be tasked with, as he has been with the company for 25 years and largely has a hardware background working on the MacBooks as well as some other hardware products out there. But certainly a successful tenure for Cook, and a tremendous challenge lays ahead for John Turnus. As I mentioned, we're also talking about Kevin Warsh, or focusing on Kevin Warsh, who is in front of the Senate Banking Committee at the moment, and he is discussing his expectations for interest rate policy. Some of the quotes that we've had from earlier in his testimony that began at 10 a.m. this morning, stating that the Fed missed its mark, and I quote, in 2021 and 2022, we are still dealing with those legacy of the policy errors that occurred during that period of time. Another quote that he mentions here is that once you let inflation take hold in the economy, it's more expensive and harder to bring it down. Mark, your thoughts here on some of the initial testimony that we've gotten from him.
Well, I want to back up again and say the Fed's job is to balance inflation and unemployment. You could argue, and I would personally, that the Fed should be focused just on inflation.
Mm-hmm.
And Warsh has made statements to that effect in the past. The problem now is that he's entering into the job, and he's going to be confirmed, I assume, with some presumptions. He's presuming that AI will proceed apace. He's presuming that it will increase productivity. He's presuming that those productivity increases will help keep wages and inflation down. And he's presuming, and I'm not just repeating myself, he's layering assumption on top of assumption. He's presuming that the right course of action will be to lower interest rates today, because AI might, at some point in the future, lower productivity by some unknown amount, and we don't know what's happening elsewhere in the economy at that point. That argument is so flawed, Paul, that it's hard to know where to start. People were texting in. I ranted on this subject. It's not a rant. Hopefully it's thoughtful. It's sincere anyway. Hey, calm down. No, I won't calm down. It took 50 years. The disastrous Fed misreading of the economy in the 1970s and thinking monetary policy couldn't do anything about inflation. It took the blood, sweat, soil, tears of the 1970s to recognize that Fed policy should be independent and should be and can bring down inflation. The cost is usually recession, but it can do it. The mindset that, and Warsh may just be saying what he's saying because it's what the president wants him to say. The president wants a pliable Fed chair. Warsh is saying nice things about Fed independence. Does he mean it? Or will he be Trump's puppet? He's acting right now like he'll be Trump's puppet. He's cooking up some really tortured rationale for cutting rates before we even have a sense for how inflationary this oil price shock will be, for example. And even taking that out of the equation, inflation was well above the Fed's target before the conflict in Iran, whatever, began. So Warsh's disposition going into this is really alarming, and his arguments are incoherent. He's off to a really bad start.
It is worth noting that ultimately it comes down to the 12 members of the Federal Reserve Committee to make the decision on interest rates. And so while Powell or Warsh in this case are the figurehead for the institution and they have to take the brunt of criticism, as well as, I guess Federal Reserve chairs don't often get cheered about as much, but they take the praise too, I guess. But oftentimes it feels like they're the punching bag on the criticism side. But you have to convince those 12 people in the room to side with you when it comes to interest rate decisions. And ultimately, Warsh allegedly has sort of this disposition in which he's able to sort of play both sides. And what you need to do as a Fed chair is kind of work the middle of the room in order to get what you're looking for accomplished. And to just step back for a moment on the productivity comment, that I don't know if we've made this point before, and Mark, you probably know this more clearly than I do, is that productivity, or presuming productivity growth, is a flawed approach. There is just no economic evidence to indicate that productivity growth is steady and predictable. It's sporadic and really difficult to chart.
Let's use history as an example. It was productivity grew at over 2% from like the post-war time, just call it 1950 to 1970. Yep. And then mysteriously, and I say mysteriously because we still don't fully understand why it happened. Maybe it was the baby boom cohort entering the labor force in large, women entering the labor force in large numbers, other factors, the premium attached to college education and the skills associated with it inevitably declining. Productivity came down a lot in the 1970s.
Yep.
So this is sort of well-known, bit of a mystery. That made the Fed's job harder. We didn't know about it at the time. The Fed assumed the economy could grow faster than it was growing. Productivity growth was pretty slow right through to the mid-1990s. 1996 finally picked up, but only for 8 years. It was well above 2%, came back down. It's been back to its pre-1996 rate since then for the past several years. Recently, though, it's ticked up. Is that AI? We don't know. To your point, you shouldn't really try to forecast. We have to make a productivity assumption, and the Fed does too, when they think about how fast the economy can grow, because that dictates how fast they should grow the money supply. If you want to think about the Fed as trying to balance the rate of growth and demand, which they can influence, with the rate of growth and supply, which they can't. But Warsh is coming into this presuming that AI, we will realize all the vaunted sort of benefits of AI, touted benefits of AI, and that we know what the effects of those results will be, and that we know what else is going on in the economy. I'll say again, his argument is not coherent. It could be because he's not an economist. I do think it's strange, given how specialized monetary policy is, that we couldn't find a PhD economist like Alan Greenspan, like Ben Bernanke, like Janet Yellen. Powell is not one. And I think it frankly showed in some of his press conferences. His explanations were garbled. Warsh is, again, I'll say, not off to a promising start. He may turn out to be a great Fed chairman. He may be saying what he thinks he needs to say to placate the president. That will be interesting to see that play out if he doesn't accommodate the president's demands to immediately lower interest rates. But as of right now, Paul, not looking good.
We will keep you apprised of any more significant updates that come out of Kevin Warsh's testimony with the Senate Banking Committee as the testimony is still ongoing here. JP Morgan lifts its S&P 500 target as AI rally regains momentum. These stories are just drive me absolutely insane. I'm so sick of them at this point because guess what? A month ago, JP Morgan lowered its target for the S&P 500. And guess what happened over the last month? The market went up, and now they're raising their target. I mean, I know that there are incredibly talented folks there within their research department that go through a significant slew of economic data and do have insights that I'm not privy to and have a background that is much more sophisticated in terms of analyzing the market than I do probably. But these targets that they have to throw out, presumably just because you have to put a number as a prediction to something, there's just so little weight that you can put on JP Morgan saying that their target for the S&P 500 is going to be 7,600, which is 500 points higher than it is today, implying, growth of about 10 or 11% or from where we are, 7% from where we are. There's just nothing you can do with these things because if the market goes down over the next month, we're going to be covering another story that they lower it. So I'm sure they have to come out with this stuff, but it's just so useless in terms of the information.
Yeah, it's one of those bottom-up estimates. So they if you think some number for PE, which is just a quotient, P divided by E, if you think some number for PE is reasonable, and that's one way to value stocks, and you increase your earnings estimate, but your PE over your estimate of the PE ratio doesn't change, you have to increase your P.
Yep.
I think it's just that. This is a bottom-up. We think earnings will be a little bit better. We don't think PEs will come down. It follows from that the P's got to go up to keep P to E constant. I think it's pretty mechanical.
Yeah.
It depends on the group that's making the prediction. This was made by their equity analysts, so it's bottom-up.
It's just a valuation point. You don't know what multiple is.
What's the right? So what if risk aversion increases?
Yeah.
What if people start demanding more for a dollar's worth of earnings? Is a PE multiple? I'm not saying they use 20, but it's probably in that ballpark. Is that the right PE? What if it's like, what
15.
if this thing in the Middle East goes on and the president decides to start tariffing everybody he doesn't like again? Yeah, right.
We're going to take a quick break here on the Financial Exchange. When we come back, we're going to have trivia and much more content here on the Financial Exchange. Stick with us.
Smart financial talk whenever you want. Find the Financial Exchange on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button and keep up to date on daily business news from New England and around the country. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
One of the most helpful things you can do for your family is to make sure that important information about your life is organized and easy to find. Hi, this is Chuck Zada from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Financial accounts, legal documents, and insurance policies are all part of a complete financial picture. When that information is scattered in different places, it can be difficult for loved ones to step in and help if a crisis occurs. Our new guide called Building Your Emergency Financial Binder will show you how to organize the most important details of your financial life, including key contacts, retirement plans, investment accounts, and insurance information. Call 800-393-4001 and ask for your free guide called Building Your Emergency Financial Binder. That's 800-393-4001, or you can request the guide by visiting armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. When it comes to leaving assets to your family, simplicity isn't always the best approach. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law, and their new guide is called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. Adding children as joint owners on accounts or property doesn't guarantee you can avoid probate. It may create serious unintended consequences. In this guide, you'll learn why leaving assets to your children may not always be the best plan. The guide also explains how trusts can be used to stagger distributions over time, help protect assets from creditors or divorce, and ensure your family receives your inheritance in a way that makes sense for your personal situation. Call 866-848-5699 right now and ask for your free guide, How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. That's 866-848-5699, or request it online at legalexchangeshow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
It happens all over Massachusetts. In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESI is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
Here at the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, we are committed to all students not only attending, but succeeding at school. Your presence is powerful. Share why you attend at doe.mass.edu.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Our Senators Edward Markey and Elizabeth Warren and Representative Stephen Lynch are standing up for radio listeners like us by supporting legislation to keep AM radio in cars. They know the value of local radio in times of emergency. Now it's time for Congress to finish the job and pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act. Learn more at dependonam.com. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
The Financial Exchange is now available every day from 11 to noon on SiriusXM's Business Radio Channel 132. Stay informed about the latest from Wall Street, fiscal policy, and breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is live on SiriusXM's Business Radio Channel 132. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Register today for this year's DAV 5K on Saturday, November 7th at Fort Independence on Castle Island. If you're not able to participate, you can still support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. Your participation helps provide vital services like free transportation to medical appointments and safe housing for single veterans and their families. Donate today at dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston. Well, the Boston Marathon is one of 7 marathons around the world that make up the World Marathon Majors. The New York Marathon and the Chicago Marathon joined the Boston Marathon as the only North American marathons in the World Marathon Majors circuit. So, our trivia question today, name one of the other 4 cities that host one of the World Marathon Majors. Once again, name one of the other 4 cities that host one of the World Marathon Majors. So we're just looking for one city. Be the second person today to text us at 617-362-1385 with the correct answer, along with the keyword trivia, and you win a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt. Once again, the second correct response to text us to the number 617-362-1385 with the correct answer. Along with the keyword trivia, we'll win that t-shirt. See complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
Workers have never been more dissatisfied with their pay and their ability to get ahead. This is according to a survey done by the New York Federal Reserve Bank, in which they saw recently the portion of workers that were satisfied with their compensation in a survey done in March that they conduct every 4 months was 52.3%. That was the smallest share in the survey's 12-year history of workers who actually felt that they were getting adequately compensated for their work. That was a 3.3 percentage point drop from where it was previously. It goes on to say in this piece, some other pieces of data that they picked up is that while employees may not be satisfied with their compensation, their concerns about losing their jobs are actually reaching a low point that they haven't seen since March of 2021. On average, workers are seeing a decreasing odds that they will have a new employer in the next 4 months. The likelihood of such move dropped to about 9.7%, which was at its lowest in March of 21, like I mentioned. So, Mark, again, this is just survey data here, but indicating that perhaps reflecting the trends of a kind of no hire, no fire labor market that we've been in, where people perhaps don't have a lot of optimism about switching jobs to get higher pay elsewhere like they may have when the labor market really heated up in 21 and 22. But at the same point in time, there is a supply shortage on the labor market that we've talked about that has not as many people being laid off from their positions. Perhaps this being reflected a little bit in the survey data here.
Yeah, the best way to raise your wages is to switch jobs. Yep. And if people aren't motivated to do that or don't feel like there are good prospects for that, I guess that would explain why they're not satisfied with their... Although if you're not satisfied, why aren't you... I'm not satisfied, say the typical respondent to this survey says, I'm not satisfied with my wages, but I'm also not looking.
Perhaps fears on the sort of stasis on the hiring front.
Well, then again, they didn't say they're not looking. They just said they're not
happy
likely to. They're not happy. What was the language about switching? I'm sorry, Paul. I'm making you do all the work here. Decreasing odds they will have a new employer. Okay, so it doesn't say they're not looking. They're trying, but they're despairing. I'll just say we're because it's supposed to be representative. We, on average, the average worker, is despondent about current wages and also we don't believe that we can get a new job. That's sort of a depressing combination of factors. Look, no new jobs were created last year.
Right.
We went from, and it's, I'm not saying, there are larger trends at work here. Like 2.5 million jobs were created in 2023 and 1.5 in 2024 and 0 in 2025. We can talk about the reasons at some other time why that might have been the case, but it's undeniable that a stagnant pall has been cast over the job market, and maybe it's AI, maybe it's tariff uncertainty. This coincided exactly with the month in which all the tariff chaos started, the on again, off again stuff. You can't deny that policy plays a role here. Businesses said at the time, we're not hiring, we're not going to invest, we don't know what the cost of goods is going to be because of these tariffs. So tariffs probably played a role in that, but it's it's manifest now in surveys like this.
Monopsony is a word that I learned today. Monopsony.
Sorry,
Clearly,
I
didn't
never
learn about
correct.
that
I don't
well.
mean to sound like a jerk. But
no, I don't.
But you
what is it? Because this is an econ.
You know, monopoly is one company.
Yes.
Monopsony is like
one employer,
one
buyer.
Pool.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Is it one buyer or one pool?
It is
I forget, I'm not
a market
I'm
situation.
not a labor economist.
Well, you're an economist.
Isn't it one
market
I'm a
situation?
generalist.
A market situation when there's only one buyer. So basically,
it is one buyer of labor services. Oh, okay, sorry.
So basically, the premise here,
Well,
and I'm
isn't this great?
deferring
We're
to
all
you
learning
because you're
together.
the economy.
No, this
you're
is
the
this is
economist
great, but
guy.
I'm not a labor guy. I mean, it's a specialized field. Paul.
I knew that.
You did?
Yeah, the whole time. I just waiting for you guys to figure it out.
What did he do? I'm sorry, I'm not.
It's basically that he knew that a monopsony was where there's only one buyer.
One buyer of. Okay, thank you.
Obviously,
in order to create a competitive. In order to create a competitive labor market, you need to have multiple employers that are competing intensely for workers. If you just have one employer out there, it makes it more difficult. We'll maybe have more on that after this break, but what we will definitely have is an update on Wall Street with Wall Street Watch and the answer to our trivia question right after this break. Stick with us.
Bringing the latest financial news straight to your radio every day. It's the Financial Exchange on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Our Senators Edward Markey and Elizabeth Warren and Representative Lori Trahan are standing up for radio listeners like us by supporting legislation to keep AM radio in cars. They know the value of local radio in times of emergency. Now it's time for Congress to finish the job and pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act. Learn more at dependonam.com. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Is it a stroke? Even if you're not sure, act fast and call 911. Signs can include face drooping on one side, arm weakness, speech difficulty, or not making sense when talking. Time is critical. A stroke requires immediate medical care, which starts as soon as the ambulance arrives. So if you see any sign of stroke, act fast and call 911. Visit mass.gov/stroke, sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health.
Sudden family emergencies can create confusion, especially when important information is scattered across different accounts. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. When something unexpected happens, loved ones may need quick access to legal documents or financial accounts that could affect your future. Our brand new guide is called Building Your Emergency Financial Binder. It'll help you learn how to organize the information your family may need one day. Everything from emergency contacts and identification documents to bank accounts and retirement plans. The goal is to create one clear roadmap so that people you trust can quickly find what they need if a crisis occurs. Call 800-393-4001 and request your free guide, Building Your Emergency Financial Binder. That's 800-393-4001 or request the guide online at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. When it comes to estate planning, many families focus on taxes, but understanding how your family will receive the assets you leave behind is just as important. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law and have a new guide out called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. The guide explains decisions that may be problematic, such as adding a child as a joint donor on a real estate property, which could expose your assets to creditors or a possible divorce. You'll also learn how trusts can be used to help protect your assets and control when your beneficiaries receive their inheritance. Call 866-848-5699 right now and ask for your free guide called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. That's 866-848-5699. Or request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. That's LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Hi, this is Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we have a guide available this month titled Building Your Emergency Financial Binder. Mike, when we talk about the type of information that should be in there, what kinds of things should people be including so that a loved one or family member can help to keep their finances in order?
Yeah, I think, on the financial side, it's what do I have and where is it?
And how do I get access to it?
Right, and so that can mean getting access to online passwords and things along those lines, but obviously how you share this stuff is extremely sensitive given the threat to being breached down the road. And so mainly it is, though, what is the snapshot of my financial, health, and legal life, and how do I format it in a way that people can actually interpret it?
And I think another piece there is that is also always changing. How do I let people know what changes I've made and when I've made updates to it? Because I might not have the same accounts that I used to.
Right, and the guy does lay that out of, hey, how do I document changes in here? Because you might not always have that old account at said financial institution. It could change, it could shift, you might retire, and keeping this thing up to date is critical. Obviously, the more stuff there is out there, the more complicated this becomes. And so as much of it as you can check off the list while you're still around and able to explain it is extremely helpful.
The guide, again, is titled Building Your Emergency Financial Binder, and there are two ways that you can request it. The first is by calling 800-393-4001. The second is by going to armstrongadvisory.com. That phone number again is 800-393-4001, or visit armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Time now for Wall Street Watch, tracking the stocks, the data, and the headlines driving markets so far today, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Well, markets have turned slightly negative as traders continue to monitor developments out of the Middle East regarding peace talks between the U.S. and Iran ahead of the ceasefire tomorrow. Investors are also focusing on comments from Kevin Warsh during his Senate confirmation hearing for Fed Share. That is happening right now. The Dow is down over 0.1% or 79 points lower. S&P 500 down 0.2% or 15 points lower. NASDAQ down only 13 points, so mostly flat. Russell 2000 down about 0.1%. 10-year Treasury yield up 4 basis points at 4.296%. And oil now up 3.5%, trading right around $92 a barrel. The big news on the day comes out of the tech sector after Apple announced longtime CEO Tim Cook will step down and hand the reins over to veteran engineer John Ternus on September 1st. Cook will remain with the company as executive chairman. Apple shares are down almost 2%. Meanwhile, Amazon said it would invest another $5 billion in Anthropic, bringing its total investment to as high as $25 billion. Amazon stock is up over 1%. Elsewhere, United Health stock is rallying over 7% after the health insurance company handily beat first quarter earnings and revenue expectations. United also hiked its full-year earnings outlook, and GE Aerospace shares are down nearly 6%. Despite it beating first quarter earnings and revenue forecasts. I'm Tucker Silva, and that is Wall Street Watch. In the previous segment, we asked you the trivia question to name one of the 4 cities that host one of the world marathon majors. Well, the cities are Berlin, Tokyo, London, and Sydney. Mike from Rutland, Mass. is our winner today, taking home a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt. Congrats to Mike. And we play trivia every day here on the Financial Exchange. See complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
Finally, as we approach the month of May, college graduates are catching a break in this job market. It had been much covered, including on our program as well, that the unemployment rate for those who are between 20 to 24 years old with a bachelor's degree had been as high as 8.9% last fall. Recent data here has shown that through the month of March that the unemployment rate in those ranges between ages of 20 and 24 with a bachelor's degree has dropped down to 5.3%, with employers expecting to boost new graduate hires by almost 6% this spring. So this comes on at a good time where we had covered extensively that there were some significant concerns that, of course, AI has been sort of pointed as the potential scapegoat here as to why employers were very hesitant to hire entry-level workers, which typically lend to the recent college graduates to do those entry-level positions. However, some of the major employers out there, such as McKinsey and IBM, are saying that they are going to up their graduate hiring this year. So an encouraging sign to see if you know anyone who is an upcoming college graduate. It seems like the labor market is getting a little bit stronger for them. So good news on that front. Americans are losing confidence in having enough for retirement. A survey says 61% of workers are confident that they have enough resources from retirement. That is down from 67% in 2025 and a high of 72% in 2021. A lot of workers very concerned, Mark, about the cost of living in retirement. Inflation is a big concern that gets mentioned. Of course, you have the looming potential falling apart of the Social Security benefit system, where it's supposed to reach its depletion in, I think it's 2033 off the top of my head, but I might have the years off a little bit.
Eligible. You're right.
Yeah, well, don't worry, it'll be there for you. And Medicare,
thanks,
Medicare as well is some of the major concerns. But it is surprising in a sense, Mark, because for those people who have been participants in 401ks, they've seen their balances rise significantly over the course of the last 4 or 5 years with very little interruption outside of a bad year in 2022.
Yeah, so I guess it's inflation.
Yeah, I feel like that has to be.
Assets are up, as you point out, so it could only be that they think their expenses will be higher, or that something bad is going to happen to assets at some point. I don't know what's behind the reasoning in each case. Obviously, they don't go that deep. But it could only be inflation, which doesn't seem misplaced, by the way.
Yeah, healthcare costs, inflation,
yeah,
and Social Security are the big three.
I mean, look at what's happened over the past year. Inflation is higher now than it was year over year, or if you want to annualize the past, however you want to massage it, inflation is higher than it was a year ago. Asset prices have bounced back since investor conviction that this conflict will be resolved soon has sort of firmed up. But, for a while, stock prices hadn't gone anywhere for like 6 months. That may be close to still that may be still the case. But they're up a little bit. But for a while, it was they were treading water. Yeah. So I imagine there's a certain amount of focus on the recent stuff that influences people's response. And, stocks are up a little, but not at the clip they were rising in 2023, 2024, and even 2025 when it slowed down a bit. But they were still up, 18%, I think, last year, S&P 500 total return.
That's
something
right.
like that.
That's right.
16, 18%.
Mark, I know you mentioned you're concerned a little bit about Social Security. Well, do I have the thing for you? We are putting together a retirement planning seminar here as part of the Armstrong Advisor Group, in which we will focus on Social Security and Medicare essentials. The seminar will be led by Susan Powers, who is a managing partner and investment advisor representative at the Armstrong Advisor Group, and also with Effie Vazoulis, who is a experienced Medicare planning specialist. Together, they're going to break down key decisions, common pitfalls, and strategies to help you become more confident and make informed choices as you approach retirement. You'll learn in this seminar how to maximize Social Security benefits and avoid costly claiming mistakes, and key Medicare decisions as well, and how do Social Security and Medicare work together. The seminar is going to be held out in the Crown Plaza in Woburn. It will be from 5 to 6:30 on April 30th. If you'd like to register for the event, give us a call at 800-393-4001. Again, that number 800-393-4001, or you can email us at contact@armstrongadvisory.com. The space is limited for this event. Registration is required, so please reach out if you would like some assistance with a great retirement planning seminar coming up here on April 30th.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Home insurance costs hit America's heartland the hardest. A piece here from Bloomberg. In several counties, Americans are paying more than 7% of their household income on just home insurance alone, according to Bloomberg Intelligence, particularly for those families who have real low incomes. The levels are reaching almost 10% or more, a huge concern for areas of the country that have been impacted by all sorts of different natural disasters, whether it be floods or hurricanes. You've got areas in Florida that have been significantly impacted on the homeowners insurance front, and it's making very challenging for those people living on a fixed income to cover those insurance costs, Mark.
Yeah, it doesn't help with inflation either, obviously, although as we talked about in the long run, the buck stops with the Fed on inflation. Warsh, who's testifying today, is absolutely right about that.
We're going to take a quick break here on the Financial Exchange, but when we come back, a little bit of Stack Roulette right after this break.
Follow the Financial Exchange Show on Instagram and see what's driving the conversation about Wall Street and economic trends. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network. When it comes to leaving assets to your family, simplicity isn't always the best approach. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law, and their new guide is called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. Adding children as joint owners on accounts or property doesn't guarantee you can avoid probate. It may create serious unintended consequences. In this guide, you'll learn why leaving assets to your children may not always be the best plan. The guide also explains how trusts can be used to stagger distributions over time, help protect assets from creditors or divorce, and ensure your family receives your inheritance in a way that makes sense for your personal situation. Call 866-848-5699 right now and ask for your free guide, How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. That's 866-848-5699. Or request it online at legalexchangeshow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Organization can make a big difference when life takes an unexpected turn. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Having your most important information all in one place may help the people you trust handle critical financial or legal decisions if a crisis occurs. We've written a new guide called Building Your Emergency Financial Binder. In it, we offer strategies that can help you coordinate the most vital details of your life, including key contacts, legal documents, and property information. Our goal is to provide you with a clear plan for the people you trust if they ever need to help manage a life-altering situation. Call 800-393-4001 right now and ask for your free guide called Building Your Emergency Financial Binder. That's 800-393-4001, or you can request it online at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
As a busy mom to 4 kids, my to-do list is full.
Trying to fit in exercise, eating right, and prioritizing self-care can feel next to impossible.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has easy tips, tools, and information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
So to all the moms, the aunts, grandmothers, and amazing women out there doing it all,
visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
You take care of them, Go Red for Women will take care of you.
In a heartbeat, you could be the difference.
Marc collapsed from cardiac arrest.
9 out of 10 people who suffer cardiac arrest outside the hospital don't survive.
It took 30 minutes of chest compressions to finally feel a pulse.
Most of the time, it's because no one nearby performs CPR. But together, we can change that. Extraordinary things happen when people take action. A small step, a simple skill, a life-saving moment. HeartWalk brings communities together to create health and hope for every heartbeat. Every walker who joins HeartWalk, every dollar donated, means more people trained in CPR, more research, and more life-saving moments for everyone. Take the first step and register for your local HeartWalk. Extraordinary starts with you. Join HeartWalk today. Find your local Heart Walk at heartwalk.org.
Get real-time financial insight as news breaks. The Financial Exchange is live on X. Watch the show and follow us for the most up-to-date business news you need to know. This is the Financial Exchange.
All right, it is time for a little bit of stack roulette. And if I know my co-host as well as I think I do, I know he's chomping at the bit to get something in here about the Federal Reserve Chair, Kevin Warsh.
I'm not a complicated guy.
So, without further ado,
Well,
Marc,
I've been tough on him today, Paul, and I wanted to point out a couple of totally level-headed things that he said.
Excellent.
I've been tough on him because his economic views are incoherent, and he's recklessly committed to cutting interest rates in anticipation of some AI productivity-driven boon that's yet to materialize. But all that aside, he has pointed out that it's probably not productive for FOMC, the subset of Fed policymakers that actually sets the short-term interest rate, the Fed funds rate. He thinks they talk too much ahead of FOMC meetings, all these public appearances in which they opine, as he put it, on their view. I think he's absolutely right. There's way too much chatter, and it's confusing. And he's also said good things about the inflation buck stopping with the Fed. He seems to recognize that inflation in the long run, not the short run, but in the long run, is a monetary phenomenon, to use Friedman's phrase. So he's got some big picture things right. The problem is it's interspersed with some bizarre statements like, we're at full employment today. He said this, we're at full employment. That would normally mean hold rates steady. Mm-hmm. In fact, you might even want to consider increasing rates if inflation is ticking up, which it is. But then out of the other side of his mouth, he says, but we should be lowering rates because of AI. That's where he breaks my brain because it's so economically incoherent. And I wonder, could we not find an economist for this job? Did we have to hire an MBA or a lawyer or whatever he is? But this is what we're stuck with, I guess.
Drinking game alert if Marc says he wishes that we had an economist with a PhD on the program.
Yeah.
Take a sip.
Is that too much to ask?
Take a shot.
I mean, you know.
Take a shot of whiskey.
There are a lot of them out there.
Who was your pick?
I'm not a...
Well, no,
monetary.
like who was your preferred?
There are a lot of
pick?
like if I gave you names, you would. I mean, you would. No offense.
Try me.
You wouldn't.
Try me.
Larry Ball.
Not good.
Greg Mankiw. You might recognize Jason Furman because he's got a public profile.
Okay.
I mean, there are so many monetary economists out there, many of whom have advised. Again, these are not household names. These are specialists. I don't know them. I just read stuff by them. I mean, there are so many people.
I'm only seeing Larry Ball as a former NFL player.
Lawrence Ball. Yeah, he's...
Lawrence Ball.
Yeah, he's at Johns Hopkins.
LaMelo?
Anyway.
LaMelo.
This is why I don't name names with you two goofballs. And I'm not pretending to be an... This is not my area.
I see him now.
I'm
Lawrence
saying
Ball, okay.
Yeah, I mean, he looks like a Fed chair. He looks like...
Boston guy. Okay.
He looks like... I didn't know that.
Tucker,
Boston guy.
With Marc, it's Larry Ball. He's kind of on a informal
call him
basis.
I'm trying to make it more accessible. My point is there are a lot of highly qualified people, but look, Warsh was on the FOMC. No one doubts that he understands the nuts and bolts of policy making. It's just that he's trying to please the president, I think, and as a result, he's saying stupid things. Maybe that'll pass.
In a more significant development, Frito-Lay and Pepsi have
more hard-hitting stuff.
I can't even say it with a straight face. The company has cut prices on its snack products, including Lay's, Doritos, and Cheetos. So good news for all listeners out there that in February, as much as we are focused on interest rate policy, the important things that are being addressed in this country are that Pepsi and Frito-Lay has taken steps since February to cut prices on many of its snack products. They have cut down the excessive amount of brands that they have, leading to a more streamlined operation and cheaper prices for consumers. And in fact, they've seen volume growth of about 2%, which I know 2% sounds small, but in the size and scale that you're talking about with Pepsi, in this division of Lay's and Doritos in their North American food division, they've seen, after several consecutive quarters of declines, 2% volume growth from its Lay's and Doritos units. And it's interesting here. Obviously, I went into this tongue-in-cheek off the Federal Reserve chatter, but this was on the backs of Elliott Management, which is an active investor taking a pretty significant stake in the company last December. And typically speaking, activist investors have, I would say, a challenging track record, or a track record that frustrates executives on a lot of publicly traded companies because they come in and are looking for a quick pop in the stock, and oftentimes they don't align with management's approach. However, it seems, at least in this case, that the two sides, both the PepsiCo board and Elliott Management, were able to come together and agree on this plan going forward to cut costs aggressively, trim down their product lineup, and then use their savings to lower prices and reinvest to win consumers back. Because what had happened is there had been a lot of focus on people looking for private label options instead of going to the standards of the Lay's, Doritos, Cheetos, and et cetera.
Yeah, when I think Frito-Lay, you think of like a sodium orgy, but it's not, though, entirely that. They've got some organic stuff in their product line that people with, say, blood pressure issues or who want to live into their 70s and be, say, functional. Can enjoy. I didn't realize how diverse it was.
It is amazing how diverse both Coke and Pepsi are in terms of their product lines. You know, Coke on the beverage side and then Pepsi on really the snack side, but also the beverage side too. There are really,
and they have versions of their pop. They have, like Cheetos, which everybody loves. They have a baked version.
Right.
I'm not sure how much healthier that is, but marginally healthier.
Whatever gets us by, right? Another piece that we had here on electric vehicles. Excuse me, that were being tested, Chinese electric vehicles. We had a TikToker really enthusiastic about the idea of new EVs on the U.S. market. There's no way that these would come to the U.S., right?
Not under current law. They can't, right?
No, I don't think so.
Are you all right?
I'm dying.
Yeah, I should probably. I'm watching him.
Mark's like,
I'm watching. Oh, this is interesting. Let's see how this plays out.
Mark
Paul's about to.
You gotta
Paul doesn't look like he can breathe. Let's see how this plays
Mark, you
out.
got to carry me home.
No, it can't. But you can't. Their technology writers marvel about Chinese EVs. They charge in 5 minutes. Not all of them, but they've got all the latest bells and whistles. They charge in minutes. They're good looking. You can
affordable.
That's actually, why didn't I say that first? Right?
Yeah.
But you can't. But no, you want a car here, you have to go buy an SUV.
No, obviously consumers are going to want what they can't have, but some of these videos out here have accumulated millions of views. The price tag on these vehicles is $24,000 for an SUV with roomy interior and a wide digital display. So
I'm sorry, can you repeat the price?
$24,000 for
That's
this
U.S.
SUV.
dollars.
U.S. dollars. That's right.
Okay.
Pretty cheap.
You couldn't get it even if they were to allow it. They'd put 100.
Put a tariff on it to make it
they tariff it
100%,
like they do with our pickups, right? You can't buy a pickup made outside the United States. I think the Frontiers and the Tacomas and the rest of them are made here to avoid these prohibitive tariffs that protect the F-150s and the Silverados, etc. Really distorted market.
Yeah,
automotive market. Very.
Thank you so much for your help. I was dying back there, and you carried me through. I appreciate it.
I waited a while. If anybody watches the tape, they might not view me as much of a humanitarian.
It's tough when you,
because I was just sort of curious. I was doing the
it's
chin
tough
stroking.
when you host a radio show and your voice just goes on you and gets absolutely destroyed.
And when your co-host,
and you have that tickle, and then your co-host throws it back to you.
Humanitarian impulse.
I will prevail.
Sorry.
I will prevail. Taking a look around at markets, we've got the Dow Jones off over 100 points. The S&P 500 is off about 0.25%. The NASDAQ is off about 34 points at the moment. We've got the U.S. 10-year Treasury rising a little bit at 4.3%, up 4 basis points. And West Texas Intermediate is up about 4% today at $93 a barrel. Thankfully for my voice, we've reached the conclusion of our program today on the Financial Exchange. We'll be back tomorrow morning with a recap of Chairman Kevin Warsh's testimony and much, much more on tomorrow's show. Thanks so much for joining us.